Let's go.
All rise for pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Please be seated.
Councilmember Totino?
Present.
Supervisor Albro?
Here.
Councilmember Foreman? Here. Councilmember Rye?
Here. And our standing attorney, Mr. Cordesco.
Yes, sir.
Not Mr. Gavon there, but Mr. Cordesco.
Welcome, Dominic.
Welcome, Dominic.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I need to do three things on this agenda to modify it. We have one item for special consideration regarding a cell tower consultant, and then we're going to remove discussion 15, discussion number 5, and consent number 3. I'll present that as a motion. Can I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There's no minutes. Now, next up is introduction of new employees. Carmine Estevan, our highway superintendent.
Good evening. Good evening, Town Board. Carmine Estevan, Highway Superintendent. I have two new employees to introduce you tonight. Very high qualified, two employees that are one coming to the highway for our mechanic, and the other gentleman is going to be working in our buildings and grounds, all part of the highway department. First, I'd like to introduce our mechanic, Kyle Lopez. Kyle Lopez, please.
How you doing? I'm Kyle Lopez. I've been mechanic for about the last 10 years or so, and I would just like to thank the Town Board of Fishkill and Carmine for the opportunity to work here, and yeah, I hope we do good things.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Carmine recommends you. That's good enough for me.
Second, I'd like to introduce Anthony Brown, extensive knowledge of maintenance, landscaping, mowing. It would be great to work with our maintenance crew on the ball fields. Anthony Brown.
How you doing? I'm Anthony Brown. Thank you for the opportunity to be employed with you guys. Also thank Carmine for employing me again for the second time. So I've been with Carmine for 14 years, and I've been mowing, landscaping close to 20 plus years.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
thank you for the opportunity.
Great. Welcome to Fishkill.
Well,
Thank you.
Yep.
I'd like to thank the town board. I haven't been to a couple of meetings. If anybody has any questions for me while you have me, I'm
any
here.
updates, sir, that you care to provide the town on the?
Just many updates as I try to continue the high quality of service that Mr. Schofield has given to our highways of maintaining our snow removal. Within the first couple of days of being the highway superintendent, I got challenged with a 11, 12-inch snowstorm. We kicked it out of the ballpark. I'm very happy with the guys. You know, you're as good as your guys, and I appreciate the guys accepting me as their leader. 2 days later, we had a flood. Floods happened, and 2 days after that, we had another 2-3-inch snowstorm. Then we had another flood after that. Then we had another couple-inch snowstorm. Then we had one of our trucks that actually had some issues with faulty wires that caught on fire. So that was a challenge in itself. Then we turned around and we had another 11-inch snowstorm. So, like I said, I'll take the challenge. This is what I'm good at. As maybe other people might take a step back, I step forward. I love the challenge, and I thank the town board and all the staff that works at the town hall for the support, because you know, you guys really made it that much easier to give us the support when we had this little fire. And you know, it took some wind out of our sail because we didn't have an office. We lost a truck. Some trucks had to be clean. We were down a couple trucks during the last snowstorm, but I called on the municipalities just in case I needed backup. We didn't need them. The guys persevered. They pushed forth. They stepped up, and I think the guys love working with me, and it has been great and it's a learning experience, but I love the challenge.
I got two more quick things for you. One, I know you had to get temporary buildings over there, and you had to get your internet and everything hooked up, and I know Debbie Colonna's here, and she did a lot of work there for you, so kudos to Ms. Colonna for all that effort. You had a recent press conference and on CHIPS funding, and it was a very big deal, and people need to know more about that. And we just returned from the Association of Towns where there was a discussion about that funding and how it affects highways and the budget and the expenses and how we're not being taken care of by Albany. And I'm just wondering if you could give a couple of minutes to educate people on how they need to press Albany on making sure that we get appropriate funding to take care of our bridges and roads.
Well, it's up to us as electeds to press, the state to give us the CHIPS fundings. Right now, there's a proposal that they're going to decrease the CHIPS funding. That means less money coming from the state for our infrastructure. So I'm planning on that. If that happens, how we're going to make up the difference or the shortfall. But also, I am willing to go to Albany and fight for the money for our local municipality to make sure that we get the monies for our local roads. Because with our roads, we have to keep the residents safe. And one of the things I said that day during the press conference is that safe roads means less accidents, taking care of our culverts, make sure that the water's flowing properly to the proper drainages, not polluting our aquifers. There's a lot of things that go in hand, and I'm willing to fight for that. And hopefully you guys will too, because any dollar that we get for our town and for our road and infrastructure benefits us all. We have planned about almost 4 miles of road blacktopping this year, so I'm being very aggressive. And when the supervisor does this state of address or town address, I will give him a list of all the stuff that we're working toward. And my goals, like if you remember I was sitting as a town council on your side, is that you guys approved almost $1.7 million to go into our buildings and grounds. That's huge. And almost $1 million into our blacktopping and culverts. So I appreciate that. We have a big agenda ahead of us to get this done, but I'm motivated and we already have the plan. We're already planning it, and I'm pretty psyched to get this done.
Thank you, Carl.
Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. If you ever need me for anything, always call upon me.
We know that.
Thank you.
Next up is a presentation from the Reverend Ron Green. You're up.
Thank you, everyone.
Could I just say, before you get get going, I'm sorry, Ron, Ron and I have known each other for a number of years, and we've gone back and forth to try to fit this time slot into your schedule to do a presentation for Black History Month, and I know it's going to be of great an educational piece. And Ron is the highest caliber of individual I've come across. He's a good friend. He's a spiritual advisor. I'll say that publicly. And I just look forward to hearing your presentation tonight.
Well, thank you. I'm not too sure about all the high caliber, but I'm going to do my best.
I am.
So, I'm Ron Green, and I'm originally from New York, and we moved up here following state employment, and we moved into, first we were over in Dutchess County over by Wingdale, and then we moved over here. And when we moved on Baxtertown Road, it was interesting because I kept hearing stories about, ooh, there used to be a church there, ooh, there used to be things there, ooh, there used to be, it was part of the Underground Railroad. And quite frankly, anybody that's familiar with archaeology knows that like everybody wants to have a church that's part of the Underground Railroad because then that does things for your status and all of that. My thing is, for anybody that remembers me, when anybody asks me, well, why are you doing this? What's your purpose? Remember this? All I want to do is get a sign. I want to get a sign up that says black people lived here and they did something. That was it. I wasn't interested in taxes, nothing else, just part of history. Because the reality is that black history really is just history. If you really look at it, there's not like this type and the other type of history. It's history. And it's been going on, it's going to continue to go on. But given the status of the world and given the way people look at things, you start to categorize things. So I'm glad to be here and tell a story about this particular church and its role in black history. Now, mind you, this is only part of the story. And as I'm sharing, you'll see what I'm talking about. The name of the church, and I gave some handouts so everybody could kind of go along. I have a few more if you didn't get one, was the Zion Pilgrim Methodist Episcopal Church. Zion Pilgrim Methodist Episcopal Church of Baxtertown. Now, interestingly, and everybody wouldn't necessarily know this, I didn't know this as a religious guy. I didn't really know this until I started doing the research, that the Methodist Episcopal and the AME Zion, the Methodist Episcopal Zions, are really both offshoots from the Episcopal denomination. Everybody's heard of the Episcopals. Well, why those two additional denominations got started was because folks that were African American looked at what the Episcopal Church was doing or not doing and said, y'all are not really doing enough to deal with slavery up in here. There's just not enough being done. So they broke away, and they became the Methodist Episcopal Church. But then, after a few years, they looked and said, you know what? The Methodist Episcopal Church is not really doing enough either. And then they branched away, and that's how you got Episcopals and Methodist Episcopals and then AME Zion. So, bottom line, back to the church though. So that's like the little history lesson. Back to the church though. So it was erected in, sorry. It was originally erected in 1848 in what was then the hamlet of Baxtertown. It ceased operating after some 82 years because there was a fire. I couldn't get too much information about that fire, but there was a fire, and ultimately the church wasn't being used, and with all of this snow that our highway department man was talking about, it used to snow back then too, and the roof wound up collapsing. So the bottom line is that it functioned for 82 years. Now, interestingly, I got involved in doing the research at on this church in a town board meeting, because it came up, oh, well, what about, there's the gas station, and every time we go to do a major project around here, we're digging up bodies. And somebody said, well, Ron, you should kind of go. Not so much because you're a big mouth, but you should kind of go. So I said, okay, and I went to the meeting, and what wound up coming up was, it was kind of like, well, we're not aware of anything of historic significance. And I said, well, wait a minute, I'm kind of new in the neighborhood, but the bottom line is I've been hearing about the Underground Railroad in this church and blah, blah, blah. And interestingly, people that I didn't know, it's like I don't really know anybody, well, I know you, but I don't know too many people sitting in the audience, and people stood up and said, that's right, and we have evidence. And I was like, oh, wow, I didn't even know all of that. I just thought it was just, I was kind of just saying, let's do an archaeological survey. So to make the case to get the sign, I'm gonna keep doing this because I enjoyed doing this for years. It took me 4 years to get the sign, so I always used to do this. But the bottom line is to get the sign, you have to prove it. So you have to do tons of research. I literally at home pulled together this much research. I was looking through it today. I didn't bring much of it with me, but I was looking through it today. This much research. So one of the things that I found out about was, okay, so if there was a church, weren't there some pastors? So one of them, one of the presiding reverends was Simeon Dixon. He was appointed in 1877, and he was appointed by Bishop J.W. Hood. You'll hear that name again later, because he actually wrote a document, this Bishop Hood wrote a document that was 625 pages long. I kid you not. And some of it was handwriting. It was like I was getting a headache reading it. But he wrote this document, and on page 603 to 605, our church, Zion Pilgrim Methodist Episcopal Church, was written about in this document that goes back to the 1800s. So you have in the handout, there's a picture of what Reverend Dixon looks like, but he wasn't the only one that I found. We also found 4 additional pastors. So there was Reverend Silas Mitchell, who was appointed in 1887 during the 66th annual conference. Annual conferences, different denominations, they have like an annual meeting. And at these annual meetings, pastors get appointed and churches get established, and they deal with a lot of administrivia. I call it administrivia, but all of the organizational things that need to be addressed. So these four got appointed at different conferences. A.J. Tolbert was appointed in 1892 during the 71st Annual Conference. C.H. Randall was appointed in 1893 during the 72nd Annual Conference. And the last one that I found was actually this F.W. Cruz, who was appointed during the 87th conference, Annual Conference. So, I mean, the only picture that I found was the first one, but in the course of pulling together all of this documentation, I also found that the church was recorded in several public official documents. So it wasn't like somebody was making this up. These are documents that are out there. It was recorded in the Fishkill Directory, the records of Dutchess County, the history of Dutchess County, and the Women's City and Country Club of Dutchess County, New York. Not only was it in these official documents, it was also in a number of periodicals. So we went kind of from not sure it was there to, okay, it's kind of all over the place if you look. It was written about in 1865 in Albany, August. In 1887 and 1893, it was written about in terms of Mitchell's appointment and then Randall's appointment in the New York Herald Tribune. Now, interestingly, I'm from New York, and the Herald Tribune literally used to be down the block from where I was. Almost every day when I went riding my bike, I would ride by the Herald Tribune. So when I'm doing the research, I was like, oh, wow, I know where that used to be. It was written about in 1908, Reverend Cruz's appointment in the Poughkeepsie Daily Eagle. It was written again about more recently in the Poughkeepsie Journal, and an article where it talked about the peaceful coexistence between blacks and Native Americans, and Frank Dalfinger, who, all those people that are from here, you know that name, Frank Dalfinger was one of the people that was interviewed. Also was written about in the Southern Dutchess News in 1991 in terms of Dalfinger, some of his memories. He was interviewed and he was talking about things that he remembered being a long-term community resident. Even more recently, it was written about in the Nyack News and Views in 2014 by Mara Farrell. It was written in the Hudson Valley Views again, and a Elizabeth Mastriani article. And it was written about in the Southern Dutchess News in terms of the property being dedicated. So I found it in periodicals, I found it in official documents, I found it in anecdotal notes, but I also found this church on a number of maps. So again, we went from we don't know it's there to, oh, if you look, then you'll actually find it. So it was on the 1858, and I have some pictures, 1858 Dutchess County map. It's on the 1867 Fishkill Town map. It's on the 1876 County and Baxtertown map. In 1993, it's on the Cultural Resources Survey map. You remember that one, Debbie? It's a really big one because they were going to do a subdivision. And whenever you do this, I'm a social worker by profession, but what I understand is when you do this, you have to do all of this research and show what's there where you want to do the subdivision. The church was depicted on that as well. I had the engineered land survey map because I owned the property, and literally on the map, and the archaeologists, when they came, got really excited because they said, well, it's here, but do you have the engineer's map? I said, yeah, here it is. And they said, oh, wow, look, it's actually 35 feet from the road. I'm like, yeah, that's what I was saying. It's been there all along. And then also there's an interesting one that I want to show you where it's a Google map overlay of current day topography. So this one you're not going to be able to see too well, and I want to stay where I'm standing so I don't want to walk all over the place. But if you look at Verplank, if you look a little bit to the right of center, you see Verplank there, there's a number of dots. I have a better picture, but there's a number of dots, and the church is the third dot down. That's the 1858 map. That's the Dutchess County map. By the way, if you go into any state building in this area, that map is up on the wall. That's like kind of where I found it. I went to the library to do research, and I looked at the map and said, oh, wow, it's there too. Here we have an 1867 Fishkill Town map, and you can see it a lot better because under JDV, you see there's a bunch of dots. First one being Anderson, and then it says Potter, and then it says M.E. Church. Okay, that's where the church actually was. That's actually where my property is. But this was the one that I got very excited about. I was working with some archaeologists that teach at Vassar, and I'll say it this way. most archaeologists aren't really like Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones is very exciting. He does stuff. He goes all around the world. He's having adventures. We did this presentation down in Fredericksburg, Virginia once, and they were not quite all that exciting. However, when he showed me this, I got excited because literally, if you look at it closely, like the roads, some of the roads are still there, and what it does is it gives you a real sense of back in this map of 1867, if you take it and put it on today's topography, there it is. So ultimately, the church got recognized. We started in 2010, and in 2014, we were registered, and the New York State, we were recognized in the New York State Register of Historic Places, and then later in October, we got recognized on the National Register of Historic Places, so we kind of got two registries. So I was looking for a sign, I wanted the sign, and I wound up getting two signs. So I have a national one, as well as one from New York State. That's the roadside matters, the blue and yellow one. So this is the document that we got from OPRHP. That's Parks and Rec, Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, and they're the ones that actually issue the designation. You get it from them, and then it's kind of a two-step deal. If you get it from them, then they kind of take it from there, and they forward your information to the feds, so that way you get a national recognition as well. So you really only have to do this much work one time, and then once you've done it, then Parks and Rec says, okay, we believe you now, because it's kind of like they don't really believe you until you prove it. So, but we believe you now, so therefore we're now going to forward your information to the feds. So in addition to the information I've shared so far, there were a number of other people that wrote about the church in a specific connection to the Underground Railroad. Because you can make a case for the fact that the church was there, but was it actually a part of the Underground Railroad? That's the trick. So Henry Noble McCracken, who's the president emeritus at Vassar College, wrote about the church and said that it was involved in the Underground Railroad. Bishop J.W. Hood, the name I mentioned before, he wrote in his document 1831 to 1918, 100 Years of the AME Zion Church. In his 625-page, I think it was, document, on page, I do remember this, 603, 604, and 605, the church is specifically spoken about. Willis Skinner, the town historian, wrote about the church, and Lorraine Roberts, who was the Dutchess County Historical Society Black History Chair, wrote about the church as well. So here are some of the artifacts that we started finding. This was unearthed during the property's clearing, so there's been some back and forth, are those shackles, are they not? I've been to museums all around the world, and they're always touted as being shackles. So I guess sometimes it's easier to say, well, maybe not, but the bottom line is that it's still on pictures and documentation everywhere. These were some of the artifacts that came up. Now, all of this was pre-survey, right? Because when the archaeologists come, they're very particular. You can't say, oh, look at what I found. I found this pen in the ground, it was right over there. No, what they do is they come and they actually lay out a grid of your property. So they document everything that comes up, every button, you'll see it, every button, every bone, every piece of glass, they actually categorize it. But these were things that I found before we actually got going. It was like I would be mowing my grass, because you all know, if you're from this area, you know the ground is really marshy, right? So when you get a lot of rain, stuff starts bubbling up, right? Well, some of these things were just bubbling up. I remember one time I was cutting the grass, and the little one, the little one that's like top left, it says, if you look at it, it says Katara. And what Katara was, is that's like the old snake oil guys. If you think about the Wizard of Oz, and the wizard, well, he wasn't the wizard, he was whatever he was, but before Dorothy went to Oz, he was out there doing snake oil stuff with the crystal balls and all of that. Well, that's what that is. It's from Buffalo, New York. It says Dr. Isaacs on it. Here's another one, as it was depicted. This says can't crack candy, and what it is a fruit jar top. I did a little research on that, and I found out that it's from the 1800s. This is a picture of the national historical marker that I got. This is the New York State historical marker that's out there, so when you drive by, you get to see it. I really enjoyed doing this. I was For 4 years, this was all that I was doing. But we're very proud of that. And, so we did an archaeological survey. Because at some point, Parks and Rec said, oh, well, we can't do the designation because I see your research and I see what you've got and I see all these comments and I see the information, official documents, but we got to get some stuff coming up out of the ground. So I said, okay. So what we did was we had 36 participants that came and volunteered. The archaeologists categorized it as a remarkably successful excavation. Boy, I can't talk right now. Remarkable, successful excavation. During the excavation, we found literally 6 boxes of stuff. There were 6 boxes that we took away. Just so you know, my wife said, no, you can't take all of these 6 boxes here. Let's leave it with the archaeologists, and you can take something, one thing that you can take. So I took the iron that we found. But it was late 18th century, early 19th, and middle century material was uncovered. We found the church foundation that I mentioned that was part of the engineer's map. The structure itself appears to have had a cellar, and you heard me say at the beginning that it's a story. This is not a finished story, because what we really need to do is go back down in there, because if we go back down, then we're going to find more artifacts, and who knows what else we're going to find. But the site is still largely intact, and there's some potential to answer more questions. So this is what the property looked like before the excavations got started. This was us out there excavating. I can't tell you the name of all these volunteers because there's literally a network of people. They say, oh, we're going to do a dig, and they put it out there as a blast, and people start showing up. So there were people that were there that I'd never even met before. One guy came from New York City. There were people that came from Saratoga, New York. And that was my son working with me. He got voluntold, but he's a good guy, so he helped out anyway. Now, that's Matt Kirk. He's the actual archaeologist. He works for Hartgen and Associates, and he knows what he's doing. He's the one that set up all of he mapped out the land and told us what to do. And then there's Paul Stewart on the right. Now, what he is he's the head of the Capital District Underground Railroad Regional Project. So he's kind of like the man up in the Albany area. And I was working with each of them and Lorraine Roberts, quite frankly, because when I'm a social worker again, so when I would run into stuff where I don't know what to do now, you call them up and they say, okay, now you need to do this and now you need to do that. But I was pretty good at the research part. This is a picture of the foundation that was found. If you're wondering what those sticks are, again, what archaeologists do is they want to categorize everything. So they want to be able to say, this is the size of what it is that we found. So they have the stick marked out. I remember how long that was, but they have it marked out with some specific markings so they know this is this many inches. So when they hold it up to something, then they have a reference. Also, you'll see the little blackboard there because it gives you an orientation of where they are, which direction they're facing, and whatnot. I had no idea that they did this much type of work. But there's another one. They found some bricks, and the church foundation, another spot. They had a few holes that were open. This is some of the artifacts that started being unearthed. And you see, if you look on the right side, that's a chart that they have, and literally everything that comes up they put on the chart, and then they categorize it later. So he put together a report that was 18 pages long or something, and in this he lays out what was found where and what depth of the ground it was found at and all of that. There's the clothesline. That's the one thing that my wife let me take home. Not that I'm going to use it, but she let me take that home. But there were a number of things that we found. I had 6 guys from my church that came to volunteer, and that's 2 of them that were right there working with me. And these are some of the things that we found after they got cleaned up. So there was a glass button, metal buttons. We found a belt. We found some grommets. Found a copper safety pin. A bar hanger. A brass thimble. I should have got that. But that was small enough. I could have hid that. She wouldn't have known. You know? There was a variety of ceramics that were found. Found a clay marble. If I had been walking by, I'd have thought that that was a pebble. But these archaeologists know what they're looking at. There's decorative furniture, plate. These are faunal bones. I'm sure I walk by these all the time. I think they're sticks, but what they are is like deer bones. They found pieces of tobacco pipes. They found some vessels of glass. And this is a picture of what, when you drive by Baxter Town Road, this is what you actually see. I think it's so beautiful, that sign, when I drive by every time well, it helps me know where to turn too, but it's very beautiful, and I feel very good about that whenever I get to see it. This was on October 31st in 2015. That's when we actually dedicated the property, and that's the national sign there, and we did a little beautification to make it look nice. So bottom line is that some additional information was found out about the church. It talked about, because I had to go to Albany to do this research, I went to the Albany Museum and I pulled out a ton of information. So it talked about in the census data, women of all ages being washerwomen. I found information about the church being a place for abolitionist meetings. They were doing temperance union recruited members, so that was the whole don't be drinking thing. Recreation took place at the church as well. There were picnics and fish fries. Interestingly, now if I go to the spot where I said the water bubbles up, I remember the first time I saw a clamshell there, and I'm like, a clamshell? Why is it, I mean, there's no beach near here. But what it was, but they were having routine picnics and whatnot, and they would throw it out over there, and it just starts to bubble up. So that's it. I could talk some more if you want, but I know you don't want. So, so I just want to thank you for the opportunity to share this bit of the story, and hopefully I'll get to come back, because there is more down there. I know there's more down there.
Thank you so much, Mr. Green.
Thank you.
Joe, just leave the podium there for today. Just leave the podium where it is. You don't have to move it.
No, Mr. Green, I live off of Baxter Town Road. I live in Round Hill, and I pass by your property. I pass by that sign every morning on my way to work, and I go to the train station. And it is a wonderful daily reminder of the tremendous history of our town, and for you to come here and give us more insight into it, I can tell you that future trips past that will be even more meaningful for me, so thank you very much.
That's great, and what I didn't mention is that at some point what I'd like to do is kind of open it up for kids to come. My passion is kids. I do social work, I do adults, but my passion is kids. So what we'd like to do is kind of get in touch with PTAs and stuff, and they can come and do a little field trip and give them cookies, and I'm not sure how I'll do a presentation like this, but I can sure talk to the kids. So want to do some more.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next up is privilege of the floor for general town items. Anybody wish to speak about anything about the town? This is your time to do it.
Thank you, Debbie.
You're welcome.
Oops. Hello, I'm Louise Danielli, a resident who legally resides in Fishkill for over 30 years. I just wanted to come and say that I watched the last planning board meeting, and I wanted to commend the planning board chair, Mr. Cantor, and Felix, and Anthony, as well as the entire planning board, all of the members. I see that Bob is here tonight, for not caving in to the pressure of the attorney from one of the developers' projects that's on 9D. Basis Industrial, State Route 90, Site Plan Development, and Special Use Permit, which consists of many different parts: a storage unit, a car wash, a restaurant, and other things. Apparently, an intimidating letter trying to pressure them was sent to the supervisor, and he sent it to the planning board chair and to the entire planning board for them to read, because they alleged that they weren't moving fast enough for this developer. As our planning board chair reiterated, the supervisor's beliefs on the prior board is that developers do not run our town. So I was very happy to see, and I want to thank the planning board for doing their job and reminding everybody that there needs to be a balance of interest in our town, as Mr. Cantor said, for the residents and for the town itself. I've also heard that the project now has a different representation but I want to make sure that the people who live on 9D, especially those who live anywhere from Pappas Lane down to 84, are aware that there will be a public hearing at the next planning board meeting, which is on March 14th at 7 o'clock, and their input is necessary so that this project can know what needs to be done or not done for it to move forward or not move forward. I also attended the Village of Fishkill Planning Board meeting, and I noticed Councilman Foreman left before the Main and Jackson project was reviewed, but I stayed, and I thought it was really nice that Danielle Hughes, who is a new planning board member, and there's another person who was appointed, his name is Ezra John Holly. They both asked excellent questions as they reviewed the secret process, which was a very nice thing to hear in the Village of Fishkill. It was also pointed out that the site is not, as many think, an as-of-right build. The planning board would have to would have the choice to approve the height of that building. People need to inform themselves and attend village meetings and stay on top of this progression of that project. I also volunteered at the rec center, which I love doing, even though I'm not on the board, and I appreciate all the work that Mary Ann puts into it, along with the volunteers, Lorraine, Roseanne, Sarah, Beverly, Grace, Eric, for everything they do. Because once again, it was another nice lunch and a nice gathering. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Next up is liaison member reports. Greg, what do you got?
Well, I'm sure the rest of the board will join me in talking about the AOT conference. For the past 3 days, Councilman Foreman, Councilman Ryan, myself, along with our deputy clerk, our tax receiver, and our stand-in attorney this evening, Mr. Cordisco, who is usually our planning attorney, have been down in New York City for the New York State Association of Towns annual conference. Not only did we get to hear important issues at some seminars from distinguished speakers such as Senator Chuck Schumer and State Attorney General Letitia James, we also had the opportunity to break out into a number of informative educational sessions. This was my first time attending AOT. It was a great experience to be in Manhattan with other municipal leaders. But it's a weird thing for me because while it's my first year on the town board, it's my 5th year with the town board. So I didn't quite go in as an entire novice, and so I set out to take classes across a variety of different topics that pertain to town government. So I took a class with Cooper on AI and town clerk's offices. And while I think we would both agree that there's a lot of progress that needs to be made before the town of Fishkill might consider implementing AI at some point in the future, it's certainly something that we want to be in the know about, something that we can be learning about. I took a really informative and frankly very moving course that pertains more to our justice court and to our police department about human trafficking, about ways to recognize if someone who might be in your court perhaps as a defendant in a criminal matter may in fact themselves in reality be a victim, and ways to identify and protect that person in the event that they're being trafficked. I took a course on DWSP2. I must admit that as a DWSP2 community, we've gone through that process, so the class didn't teach me an awful lot, but it is good to know that the experience we've had moving through DWSP2 is consistent with what the state is looking for from DWSP2 communities.
Explain to the citizens what that is.
DWSP2, if you haven't noticed over the last couple of years, the town Supervisor Alber's initiative, former councilman, now Highway Superintendent Isfan, and I largely worked with our town planner Liz Axelson and some state-provided engineering consultants to engage in the Drinking Water Source Protection Program, DWSP2. It is a free-to-participate-in state program that is designed to help municipalities identify and protect their drinking water sources and to devise plans if there are drinking water quality issues or concerns, to remediate those, to mitigate risk, and to develop long-term solutions to ensure the sustainability of affordable quality drinking water for residents. We began that process 2 years ago. We finished that process in late 2022, 2023, and we are at the implementation phase of that. And as one of our town's DWSP2 officers. It is good to see that the state is continuing to make this program available to a lot of other municipalities, and the attendance of that seminar is encouraging, and I hope that a lot of other towns in the Hudson Valley and across New York State get involved in the program, because there are a lot of different factors to consider when dealing with matters of water quality, whether that be road salt leading to higher chlorides, whether it could be aging infrastructure potentially leading to harmful chemicals like oil, gas, or propane leaching into the ground, or in more modern era, concerns of microplastics like PFAS in the water. These are all concerns that municipalities have. So being a DWSP2 community puts Fishkill at the front of the line with the state when it comes to getting grant funding. It puts us at the head of the class, if you will, when we turn around and identify a fix or a program that we want to participate in, and then we can lobby the state more efficiently and effectively to get funds to offset that cost or to cover that cost completely, so that we can engage in these programs at little to no taxpayer expense. That's something that's been very important to the supervisor. It's critical to myself. I know the rest of the board is fully supportive as well. And so to see that at the AOT conference says that the town, not only are we on the right track, but we're sort of ahead of the curve in terms of doing that. You know, before we had this type of lecture, it would have been great to come back and say, hey, here's a thing that we should do, but I think it's even a better feather in our cap, like Brian's red feather there, to say, hey, look at what we've already done. So that is the main point I wanted to make. I did just want to give a shout out to the Highway Department. We had a big snowstorm last week, and it was very well attended to. I was up in Round Hill. The roads up there, Baxtertown, all of the town roads within Round Hill were very well maintained, and I know that that was the case throughout the town. So a shout out to Carmine and his crew. Very good job. John?
Okay. Good evening, everybody. On Super Bowl Sunday morning, February 11th, I volunteered some of my time at the Fishkill Food Pantry during their annual, or not annual, but during their food drive at St. Mary's Church. Thursday, February 15th, I attended the Valentine Senior Party at the Rec Center. I also attended the Village of Fishkill Planning Board meeting for an hour and 20 minutes. On Friday the 16th, I attended the press conference Carmine mentioned before, hosted by the Fishkill Town Highway Superintendent Carmine Isfan. It was organized by the local assemblymen from all around, from Orange and Rockland and Westchester and right here in Dutchess, including our own assemblyman, A.J. Beefan. There are over 24 highway superintendents who took time to come out to this event. And they're running these events all over the state. The topic is, of course, the CHIPS funding cut. Governor Hochul has lowered the CHIPS funding by $60 million. Not only do the highway superintendents are asking for the $60 million back in the budget, they like another $60 to $100 million back because they haven't had annual increases in a very, very long time. So they will fight the fight, and we'll help them. Brian, were you there?
Yeah.
Brian and Carmine, and Ozzy were there with us, so thank you for that. And of course, as Greg mentioned, we attended the Association of Towns, and we listened to Senator Schumer and Attorney General Letitia James at our annual breakfast. And it's really good meeting with our colleagues, not from just around the area, but around the state, because to be honest with you, the problems we have in Fishkill are the problems other towns have as well. And it's good to put different minds together to figure out solutions, but that's all I have.
Well done. Brian?
Okay. Just sketched out some notes. We're in Manhattan for this training, got there Sunday afternoon, and it was a couple of really packed days. As you've heard, I'm not going to spend a lot of time going into it, but it is good to be around your colleagues around the state and hear a lot of good information. I attended a lot of different things. Drinking water source protection was obviously something I was very interested in as well. Just a couple of these things. Transformational tourism, how it can revitalize your town. I'm interested in that because we're going in to a period where we'll be working on a project for the 250th, and it was good to hear some insights on how to utilize that, especially since we're going to be reworking our web page, and so we can really pack some good information on the historical side for that. I'm just flipping through. I don't want to read everything to you. There are, understanding financial support, cellular towers, emergency medical services was of interest to me because, that along with volunteers for fire departments, which is also something that I attended, or areas where we have a depletion in bodies out there. So just a lot of good information. It's very useful. A lot of things for me to follow up on and research, and I'll be talking about it more in the future. So I did attend the Valentine's Day celebration, of course, at the rec center. Very happy to be there. I had to leave early because I had a doctor appointment, and I love that I told the seniors that, and they understood. Nancy Brownell, I went to her wake, and I was once again, I'm just expressing this to her family. What a wonderful, wonderful lady, giving of her time to advise the town on developing our partnership, which we are soon to be signing with Fishkill Historical Society for the 250th. She was very instrumental. Coincidentally, we passed that resolution to formulate that agreement with the FHS on the very day that she passed, unfortunately. I attended the Blodgett Library Books and Badges. I just love how Julie Spann over there has all of these creative programs, and this is, you go online and look at it. This is when our local police officers in uniform are reading to little kids storybooks. It's just the most wonderful thing. Yes, I was at the Highway Department the other day for the CHIPS press conference, and I heard, remind me, Ozzy, maybe you heard this stat from somebody who obviously knows what he's talking about. I don't know what organization he was with, but he was talking about 80% of roads and bridges are handled by local towns. I mean, it's a huge percentage of all roads and bridges throughout the state of New York. And if you believe a loaf of bread has gone up in the last couple of years, you can definitely believe repairing a bridge and maintaining a road has gone way up. So the funding is going to be very important. I did the St. Mary's food drive as well on Super Bowl. Happy to be there. Greg, you and I went to Town of Wappinger, and we had that joint little interlude with Town of Wappinger, and they, before their board, and introduced as dual liaisons, if you will, to Wappinger, and so we were glad to have attended. The supervisor there invited us, and that was a nice presentation. And
Certainly.
I know you've got a lot of ideas, I got a lot of ideas, and we'll just see how through time we can develop something between us. Very, very happy about Ron Green being here. Very proud to call him a friend, and just he's a very busy man, in demand, and for him to take the time, I just salute you again, sir. For that information. Look forward. Anytime you want to come back and give more information, all you got to do is contact me, because I know the board and the town would love to hear what you have to say. And let's see, John and I met recently with our PD. We've kind of got some thoughts here we'll be presenting in the not too distant future on helping with recruitment. And that's it.
Well done. Okay. You guys took care of everything I was going to say, so thank you all. Next up is discussion of amending Chapter 90 of the...
May I just give one extra shout out? It was last evening we had a chance to get together with our water and sewer operator, Mike Tremper, who every year during AOT puts together a little dinner for the municipalities with whom Camo Pollution Control works. They've been working in the town of Fishkill for more than 40 years. If you live in the Brinkerhoff district, they're the hardworking crews that have been identifying and developing and implementing solutions to the water main situation near the Cow Pass by Brinkerhoff Elementary School. If there's a water main break and they have to turn it off and get the water back on again, they're the people who keep your water pipes running. I just want to say thank you to Mike and to his entire team not only for a delicious dinner, but for all the work that they have done and continue to do for the town of Fishkill and all of the surrounding municipalities.
I will add that when he spoke in front of the group, he did thank the residents of the town of Fishkill. While we, as a town board, may approve contracts and approve payments, he understands who he works for, and it is the residents. So, want to make sure that that was relayed.
Good. That was all. I apologize
Okay.
for interrupting.
Next up, discussion of amending Chapter 90 of the Town Code of the Town of Fishkill. That's for maintenance of properties that are not being taken care of. Just real quick, I saw a couple things I'd like to address as we amend this thing. There's something about wooden fences that need to be painted or stained. I'm not okay with that. I'd like to get rid of that provision. Is that okay with you guys?
Sure. Yeah.
Carly? Greg? Sorry.
That's your one.
All right.
You get one each meeting.
All right. John, you okay with that?
Yep.
All right. The second one, section 113, 2D. What about and this, I talked to both bill inspectors and deputy bill inspectors. 113-2, David. What about residents that have cut logs or trees that are going to be used as firewood? Some keep full-length cut and felled trees until they dry out for the season. They have cut and split them, stacked them neatly, while others keep the wood in piles and dropped off or split on their property. You guys okay with me further looking into that to see if we can have some type of further?
That's the same note. I'm trying to find my notes on that, but that's one. I'm just worried about that a little bit. It seems like it's open for almost, a lot of violations and people being fined, and I'm just wondering if it might be a little too stringent. But that's a good catch right there, because I was thinking about that too. Firewood. There could be some other ones.
So, okay to look a little further into that?
Yeah, can we do that? Okay. And I'll actually type my notes and email them next time. So.
Cool. Then section 113-7, boy, does this cover all properties where no one is around to be served, no personal service takes place, certified mail comes back and is not signed for? So that'll be more of a legalese question for the town attorney. So basically, like, we got some vacant lots where people are dumping stuff and they're taking off.
Right.
How do we deal with that? Besides that, that's all I got. Any suggestions, Greg?
I certainly think that particular question of enforcement should be fielded to the town attorney to see if there are perhaps other examples of how municipalities elsewhere handle situations like that, where people may be taking advantage of an abandoned or a vacant lot that is perhaps lacking in security or preventative measures. Maybe there's no fence, maybe there's no cameras, and they're dumping illegally and using it for their own purposes. I'm sure there are examples elsewhere of ways that we could strengthen that provision. And yeah, obviously what we want from this code is going to be something that is not ambiguous, it's clear, but that also doesn't contain pitfalls where residents may, of no particular fault of their own, find themselves in violation needlessly. So I very much like the notes that you've given. And as with Brian, I will type up mine and send them in an email so we can continue that discussion.
Okay.
Maybe there's an opportunity if there is a lot where somebody's dumping stuff, maybe we look at we'll put a motion detector camera on it or something, so you can help the police catch them. I don't know.
I think more is, there's no one there to serve the subpoena to. I think that's what I was thinking, more like that, right, Mr. Gradasco?
Understood.
Yeah.
And, so I will make notes. I actually already have them. We'll pass those on to Mr. Gava.
Okay. Next up is another local law discussion of abandoned utility poles. Zombie poles. You guys okay with moving that to consent?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay. Next up is the film and local video presentation. Any update on that, Brian?
Yeah, Greg and I did a conference call with Steve Gaba and kind of went through point by point. Once we pass this, then we'll work jointly on what the application will be, et cetera, et cetera. But the point of the matter is that for people who do want to come here and film, which I encourage, we've got to have some guidelines on traffic and everything else and times of day, and if you're shooting 5 days and under, then certainly go to Becky for a permit. If you're going to be here extended day, then maybe the board has to get involved and approve. We talked about certain times of days, people can look at this, certain times of days, people can shoot or be in production, and certainly some guidelines if they're going on private property alone. There's a lot of things that you don't really think about until you think about it. Certainly requirements for insurances, et cetera, et cetera. You know, finally we're doing this, and I know that it'll bring some guidance to the Hudson Valley Film Commission and Dutchess County Film as well, so they know that, yes, we're open for business, and you know, people who want to shoot here and scout out a location will know there are a few guidelines. So what do you think, Greg?
You summed it up very well. It is an important balance of finding a way to encourage people who are interested in filming in the town of Fishkill to do so, but in a way that is complementary to the quality of life of Fishkill residents and does not detract from it. We have, in the past couple of years, gotten some complaints because without any type of set of guidelines pertaining to filming, there have been instances where, you know, film crews have caused major traffic delays, where they have caused you know, noise complaints later in the evening or early in the morning, and we want to eradicate those while still making sure that people who want to use, you know, the beauty, whether it be natural or architectural or whatever it is that they see, which we know Fishkill possesses that would make it desirable for a filming standpoint, to be able to do so without detracting from the quality of life day to day for the residents of Fishkill. Mr. Gaba indicated, you know, of course he's away this week, but he was going to have something for us to take a look at when he returns, and then we can, once, you know, we're all ready to present that to the board, look into, you know, the next phases of getting this adopted.
Right, and, you know, one of the things, just as you're talking, reminds me of, you know, if they're going to use a town park or a town building and they're given permission, we got to come up with a set of fees.
Right.
If they need police to help with anything, we have to come up with those set of fees. If the highway department, so the department by department, we need to develop that set of fees and other guidelines to go with the application, but that's, so this is just a process.
Yeah,
You know.
and when we get to that point, we'll no doubt want to collaborate with those department heads to
Yep.
develop a schedule that's sensible.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's table this to the first April meeting.
April?
Yep. Next up is discussion to hire Anthony Brown, full-time highway guy. Everybody okay with that?
Did you have number 4?
I'm sorry, missed number 4? Oh,
U-turns?
yes, U-turns. I crossed the
U-turn.
bottom one. So the, next up, number 4, discussion of placing U-turns on Cheer Party. Unlike stop signs where we could just vote to do it as a resolution, it's not on our fees, on our schedule for the signs, so we have to adopt a new local law to include U-turns. You guys okay with moving forward on that?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I would ask Mr. Gaba to do what he did with our last local law and make it so that in the future we can do so by simple resolution.
Okay. All right, so, give me a month on that one, Becky. Second meeting in March?
Second meeting in March?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, we tabled number 5. So number 6, hire Anthony Brown. You guys okay with that?
Absolutely.
Sure.
7, hire Mr. Lopez.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Next up, discussion to authorize supervisor to sign street lighting authority order form. There's a resident up on off Red Schoolhouse Road that wants to put a light in front of her, a light in the cul-de-sac where she lives in. We have the money to do to pay for the light bill, but we're still trying to get back from Central Hudson who pays for the light, right, Joe? Did they come back with that yet?
No, not yet.
So basically what they'll do is if you guys give me permission, if it's only to pay the light bill, we can do that. But if we have to buy the light, we'll have to do it next year.
Sounds good.
You guys okay with that?
Yeah. Sounds
Okay,
good.
makes sense? All right. That's in consent. Next up, discussion and resolution introducing a proposed local law to enact the town chapter entitled Utility Poles. And to set the,
Overnight property maintenance.
I'm sorry? Yes. Discussion and resolution introducing a local law, setting the public hearing for the property maintenance we just talked about. You everybody okay with that?
Yes.
When would you like to set the public hearing for this? 30 days?
I think Mr. Gaba has it already.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's.
Second meeting of March?
Second meeting in
March
March.
20th.
Yes.
March 20th? Very good. And the next one will be the zombie polls. That's number 10. Is that the same day?
That's the same day. Yep.
Okay,
Excellent.
covers that. Number 11, discussion of resolution to approve peddler's permit for renewal by Anderson. So a peddler, if they're going to knock on your door, they have to get a permit from the town to do so. Everybody okay with this?
I'm glad they're getting a permit.
And the next one, another one, would be discussion resolution for peddler and solicitor license application, Power Home Remodeling. Everybody okay with that one?
Let me just say something about why
Absolutely.
I'm glad that they're getting a permit, because I just don't like it when strangers come knocking on my door and want to sell something, so I'm glad that we're having this process for them to come through so we know who they are. So, sorry about that.
Just so you know, that when I send them their permit, it's neon green.
Ah,
Oh,
highly visible.
Neon green, same as with the food trucks.
Excellent.
The permit I mail them is neon green.
Do they have to carry that, right?
Yeah. But they probably, for their staff, make photocopies of it, but the main one
That's interesting.
is neon green.
good to know.
Thank you, Becky.
Next up is number 13, discussion and resolution to approve Pitney Bowes for the service contract. I think we got another quote, but it was higher. Everybody okay with this?
Yeah.
Olympia worked hard on this one.
Thank you, Olympia.
Thank you, Olympia. Next up, discussion regarding approving the consolidation of the Glenham Water District. You guys wanted to bring it back up for discussion, so it's here for discussion.
I mean, how simple is this? This is about adhering to the tenets of a grant that you and a board before Carmine and John and I got on hired CPL to enact. And we have one of our employees back here for 4 years working on this with everyone's knowledge. This is about paperwork. This is all about consolidation for consistency in billing and cutting down costs and paperwork. That's all it's about. And if we don't, this is the last time to get this done, then there's a potential, and I sent you guys an email, for us being fined and having to repay part of the $100,000 grant that we got in 2015. It's got nothing else to do about a commercial project. It's not denying anybody water. It's about an employee sitting right back here with less paperwork. It needs to be passed.
Why again did you and Greg vote against this?
Right?
Well, I had said it previously. I'm not a fan of doing things piecemeal. I know that this is a grant, as Brian pointed out, from 2015, and so the first question that comes to mind is, why on earth wasn't this achieved before Supervisor Albert was ever elected in the first place?
Doesn't matter. It's where we are now. And
Apparently, I'm finished speaking. Okay.
But no, come on, it doesn't matter. This is where we are now. This thing has been extended and extended and extended. I agree with you, and I asked that question. We got it in 2015. Why didn't Lacola take care of it? And the answer that I got back were there were pressures that he was dealing with, and he just deprioritized this. So, thank goodness, Ozzy made it. And if you read the email, every district has been consolidated. This is the very last one. There's nothing piecemeal. This is about every single solitary one of them. This is the last one, or we have to pay back money.
That's not, well, that's not entirely true, because the Beacon Hills Water District is not going to be connected either. So people listening out there, we did a lot of this consolidation to begin with. The following consolidations were approved by the town board and completed. Bickerhoff Water District consolidated with all the mini districts and out of district. Dutchess Park Sewer, same thing. Roundabout Water, Roundabout Sewer. So we did probably about 80% of the work. There was 3 water districts left: Glenham, Blodgett, and Beacon Hills. Beacon Hills was not qualified because they had a bigger debt load to connect them to Glenham and to Blodgett. So a regular person watching these meetings, we've taken significant steps to taking the town from being run by developers and placing the power into the citizens, hands of the citizens of the town of Fishkill. And one important tool is capacity for water and sewer. And we learned that in the last 4 years, that if you don't have water or sewer, you can't develop. So the Blodgett Water District is at capacity. So if we combine those 2 water districts, Glenham into Blodgett, then we would give that Route 9 corridor an infinite amount of money to develop high-density housing in the future, taking that tool away from the citizens of Fishkill. My policy is to protect the citizens of Fishkill with all tools available. Some other board members think we should work on behalf of the developers. I think you guys watching think I got the right idea and they got the wrong idea.
That's an excellent point, Supervisor.
I'm sorry. What was that you just said?
I'm still
working on behalf of the developers? I'm working on behalf of the town of Fishkill on a $100,000 grant to reduce paperwork. You just presented this, in fact, that was totally incorrect what you just said. Infinite amount of water for developers out there. What are you talking about? You haven't read the grant. This is the last time to do this or we get fined. And for you to just pass that off is just very irresponsible. I'm sorry. You want to go ahead and do that? Do that. But that's just irresponsible. It has nothing to do with developers.
Ladies and gentlemen, if we add water capacity, right now, the Route 9 corridor does not have water capacity. They're finished. We have to find water for one project. We got to do that by a judge's order, and we're going to comply with that order.
That's right.
If we add a lot more water for that Route 9 corridor, which goes all the way to the Putnam County line, then the developers have a water source to tap into, and we can't refuse them that. He doesn't understand that.
I understand that you're twisting the facts, that this is
What
all
facts?
about paperwork. How simple can it be?
Well,
It's right here. Here's the grant. Okay, read it. Where does it say developers in it? Where does it say any other? It's about a grant.
That's what's going to happen if you do it.
Oh, my God. So that's okay. Let's just get fined and have to repay part of the grant. Let's just do that because of this bogus scenario you're setting up. These things are going to still have their water capacity.
No, they're
They're
not.
still going to have their water capacity.
No, they're not.
And if the town needs more, and you know this, if any of them need more, all we do is work with the village on that. Why are you doing this? Why are you making this into a big deal?
Ladies
when
and
it's
gentlemen,
a grant about paperwork? Why are you doing that?
It's not about paperwork, it's about
Yes, it
having
is.
more development on the Route
So
9
angry.
corridor.
Right
Councilman,
here.
Go on, finish up.
Right here.
I mean,
That's
you
all
can
this is
say
about.
that it's about paperwork, and I'm sure that it would make a level of convenience from a paperwork processing standpoint, but
God.
you cannot consolidate two water districts for the purpose of paperwork without consolidating two water districts from the standpoint of source and capacity. So
Okay.
the supervisor brings up what I think is an absolutely excellent point, which is that if we as a town board are as committed as we have said that the residents run the town of Fishkill, that the developers do not run the town of Fishkill, that we will exercise our legislative oversight over our water district capacity, over our sewer capacity, over the matters of zoning over which the town board has sole discretion, then you may say that this is, it's a simple question of paperwork and convenience. That's great. That's also incredibly short-sighted.
No, it's not.
I'm not finished.
Okay.
I'm not finished.
Go right
now.
ahead, but it's
I'm
not
glad I've got your
short-sighted.
permission, Brian.
Yeah. Go right ahead.
When you consolidate two water districts, it's not just a question of the paperwork at the letterhead at the top of the page when it goes out for billing. And my vote isn't changing. I apologize to anyone at the town, whether that's in our finance office, if it's in our water department. Mary, I apologize if this does not make your life easier. I'm sorry. But we have to consider the long-term ramifications of the actions that we're taking here. We can, score a very cheap victory in terms of making paperwork easier, but if what we're also doing is taking a whole bunch of undeveloped parcels along the Route 9 corridor, which right now cannot develop because there is inadequate water capacity, and tying two districts together in a way which now provides more capacity, we are issuing a green light and a blank check for anyone who wants to come before our planning board and say, well, now I get to do this as of right. And we've seen the courage that our planning board is demonstrating. We've got planning board members in our audience tonight, and I know that others are watching at home. And I really don't think that they'd appreciate us hamstringing them and claiming that it's entirely a paperwork matter. Because I can guarantee you when it's a developer and an attorney standing in front of them threatening lawsuits, if they don't get exactly what they want, it's not about the paperwork, it's about the people.
It's very interesting commentary. I just am curious where you got your engineering degree, because once again...
Where did I say anything pertaining to engineering?
Once again, there is no physical linking, there is no tying together. We're talking about consolidating paperwork and consolidating billing, so it's the simplicity. There's no engineering and piping and putting water capacities, joining them together. They're two separate. They're called one now, as opposed to two separate ones. And I don't know why you're shaking your head. You've never read this.
If you combine,
You know what? Stick with your plan. Stick with your plan, and when we have to pay back money, let's revisit that then. And
Hey,
this
listen,
is irresponsible on your part. It's got nothing to do, and by the way, I don't know a developer, okay? And quit using that. I'm not about developers.
It should piss you off
I'm
because
about
the
the
citizens
people of
think
this
they're owned by
town.
developers.
I'm about the people of this town, and
You're
you're
owned
going to
by the
cost them
developers.
You're going to cost them money.
Ladies and gentlemen, You combine the two water districts, right now, the Route 9 corridor has no more water capacity, so they can't get water. You combine these districts, now they can develop all the way to the town.
Has nothing to do with it.
Yes, it does.
You didn't read the grant.
Yes.
I have it right here. You haven't. It's just ridiculous what you're
It's
saying.
not ridiculous.
I think the supervisor is a little disingenuous because he's inferring that he uses the word capacity as if there is no more water available. And the Blodgett Water District purchases 100% of their water from the Village of Fishkill.
Correct.
So the Village of Fishkill is in business to sell water,
Correct.
okay? So it's
What's this?
a little off base
we're
by
at
you
that
telling the
capacity.
public that there's no more capacity.
And we're at that capacity.
Excuse me, John and Brian both sat in the same comprehensive plan meeting with me, where Mike Tremper told us that the town is rapidly and dangerously approaching its threshold of what is safe and responsible to pull from our local aquifer. So you can say, oh yeah, we can buy the water, until we get to a point where we're taking more out than is going back into it naturally, and then where will we be?
Okay. I don't know that they were, that's another topic. We're talking about a grant here.
Now it's time to compartmentalize, sure, Brian.
That you're ignoring, and you're talking about some sort of engineering, connecting water. This is about paperwork, fulfilling the grant, so we don't lose money and have to pay it back, because I don't know what you guys are talking about, but you haven't read this.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've enforced the zoning laws in the last 4 years, stopping over 1,400 high-density homes coming to the town of Fishkill. This is another layer to prevent development if we don't want it. It's a tool. He's worried about paying back 10, 15 grand. I'm worried about you sitting in traffic. I'm worried about you paying the bill for a new school, another
I'm worried
cop
about
car.
your water being brown.
Yes. What's it worth to you? But you got two board members here that back the citizens of Fishkill, and you got two that back the developers.
I don't know a developer. This is all about a grant and paperwork. This is not about piping things together and giving one future access to water. You are fabricating crap, and I'm getting real tired of that, by the way.
Listen, every vote you have benefits a developer. You support developers.
Oh, my God.
You should support that.
You're just relentless with that stupidity. I can't get over you.
Hey,
I really can't get over you.
The residents of Fishkill
I can't get
understand
over
what's
you.
going on.
I think they don't.
All right, so we're going to have a vote on it.
Unfortunately,
Let's vote.
they do know what's going on.
They do. And they're happy as hell to have somebody like me to protect the zoning laws.
And
in the
me
town of
too.
Fishkill. No, you
That's what I'm here about.
I don't know about
This
that.
is about a grant and about paperwork.
No.
This is not about piping and plumbing and access to tons more water and getting anybody access,
it
or
is.
any developer.
Yes, it
has
is.
nothing to do with that.
Right
That is
now-
what you're painting.
right now, if a developer
painting
came
for
in-
political purposes, and it's
If
infuriating.
a developer came in after we vote, if this passed, right
No,
now, he
that's
can't get it.
incorrect.
I could tell the developer, too bad, you got to find
That's
water.
incorrect.
When
It
did
is
you get your
correct.
engineering degree,
He's got no
Brian?
engineering degree.
I'm
Chamber of
reading,
Commerce, you.
I'm reading the grant, and I'm adhering to the grant
Yes.
about lowering cost in the office back here.
And
Why did you hire Clark Patterson Lee, the engineering firm? Why did you hire them to fulfill that grant? Why did you do that? Why did you let Joseph DeFrancesco, sitting back here, one of our project facilitators, work on that for 4 years? Work on this grant for 4 years, knowing what is going to happen to you getting to this point. You knew this was happening.
I did not make my decision until I read this and looked at the documents. So don't you act like I was going to do 4 years ago, I was going to vote no. That's not the case. I decided to vote no when this came up about 2 weeks ago.
Okay, good job then.
It is a good job.
You hired
All right.
CPL to do this. You
We
had
hire
to
a lot
let
of people
Joe
to do a
work
lot
on
of
it for
stuff.
4 years. It's okay, let's just spend the money. It's only about a lowering cost in the office, but go right ahead.
Let me tell you something, my friend. You have no standing to talk about the economy of the town of Fishkill because you have nothing to do with its success. So just leave it at
I
that.
believe for 2 years I've been helping a great deal.
The
I think that
strength-
people-
the strength of the town of
I think that people out there
Fishkill-
have an idea what I've been working on, and that's why I'm back here again.
The financial,
okay?
the financial
Please.
strength of the town of Fishkill has been weakened since you've been on this town board, period.
No,
what?
I mean, right
what?
now, we're
What?
showing that there's a balance here that's needed on this board, because you're just being political on something that's just so simple, has nothing to do with
The
what you guys are
citizens
talking
don't want
about.
high-density housing, they don't want to sit in traffic, they don't want to do developers
Right, neither-
favors.
we
You're
don't
doing
want 'em
developers
either.
a favor by
I
giving
don't
them
want
this
it
water.
either. I agree with you. Not interested in that myself.
Votes matter. When you say you agree with
Absolutely.
something and then you vote against it,
100%.
it's a duality of
100%.
misconception. All right.
You name one development that's come before here that we voted on. You name one that I've said, oh my God, let's put in 500 freaking houses over here. Not one.
Well, they know better than to come with a proposal like that with this man in that chair.
Exactly. You like to doubt that? All right.
You've done a disservice.
There's no disservice.
Yes, you have.
The residents of Fishkill, I believe.
I look
will
forward to seeing, and I hope we don't have to pay it back. Let's just see how that turns out.
Just the payback stuff, right? So Beacon Hills can't be a part of this. They're not going to make us pay for Beacon Hills, and we have a determination that we tell them that we're not going to do it.
You guys ignored the report given by Joseph DeFrancesco, our own project engineer. You guys are totally
I am unaware of him being elected to the town board.
You guys
He's not elected to the town board.
He is a trusted employee.
I didn't say he wasn't, but he is not a member of the town board. He doesn't talk to the citizens of the town of Fishkill.
4 years. And he submits the report, and I gave it to you to look, and you're ignoring it, but that's fine.
Ignoring it.
You know, all right, you're doing your political thing. Go for it.
There is a difference between acquiescing to something and processing and acknowledging it. Simply processing and acknowledging something and then determining with the authority bestowed upon him by the residents of the town of Fishkill that he does not wish to act on a particular report does not mean that he is ignoring it. And I do not like the misrepresentation of it as such.
I think that's a lot going on that end of the table.
The positive end of this table.
That end, not this evening, buddy. You're going to cost the town money.
Yeah. All right. Next up is discussion of, what do we got here? Discussion asked to police, number 15, item 9194, discussion asked the police department for assistance with the Hometown Heroes banner placement. Anybody object to that? Do a resolution on that to order the police chief to do this?
Why don't you just pick up the phone and ask him?
Thank you very much, Councilman Foreman. I'll tell you exactly why we have to do this resolution. Last year, when we asked the police chief to do this, there was no available police manpower for it. So we had to ask the New York State Police to come in to do our local agency's job.
Okay.
Isn't that shameful that another agency has to do our work?
But that was
That's
last
why.
year.
Are you aware?
That's why.
That
Would
was
you happen
last
to be
year.
aware why they weren't available? I don't know why they weren't available. Did you call them and ask?
What?
I don't know.
You know, I was a policeman. Were you? I worked in the
That's got
police.
nothing to do with
It
it.
does. It does, my friend, because when I was a policeman, when we had special details, if a patrolman couldn't do it, a sergeant would do it, a lieutenant, and many times my chief of police would do stuff like that. Here, it's beneath them to do this stuff.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Supervisor, since I'm not a police officer, if there ever was a circumstance where an outside agency had to be called in to perform a service in your community because your department was unable to do something, what would morale be like around the station after that?
It's embarrassing. We would not let another agency do a quality of life program, period. And for them to be flippant to say, we don't have the manpower, and this is not the only incident, when we had the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 ceremony, no manpower. I was so concerned that we weren't going to get manpower when we dedicated the Chief Nimam statue. I had the State Police and Sheriff's Department color guard there. Yeah, our guys showed up, but it was already taken care of by the New York State Police and the Sheriff's Department. So I want to make sure our guys are safe on the street with Town of Fishkill police officers doing the quality of life stuff that our police department was formed to do. So I'm going to have a resolution for this at the next meeting. And you can either vote for it or not vote for it.
I'd like to hear a commentary from our chief on all of this.
Really? Why don't you call him when you leave and say, how come you couldn't have coverage for our guys? Come on, man.
Did you have a conversation with him about it? I mean, did you? You don't. You fire off emails to him criticizing him all the time.
Absolutely.
I don't know when you pick up the phone.
I'm the only accountability in the town of Fishkill.
I don't think you even have a meeting with him. So, you know.
It's disgraceful how we can't take, our department was formed for
you don't
quality of
even
life
have a
stuff,
meeting with
and they're unavailable. So we have to do a resolution to make sure they are available.
You don't even have a meeting with them about
Yeah.
anything, not even the budget, nothing. So.
There's two things that we can deal with, resolutions and budgetary, and that's what I'm going to do. And there'd be a resolution to make sure.
I think what's shameful and what
No, it's
degrades
shameful.
the
It's
police
shameful for
department
not
is
being
your
there for
continued attacks on
our
them,
officers.
and you don't even talk to
that?
them. So.
So it's shameful that I got to do a resolution to have them do a quality of life issue. Thank you for bringing it up, John.
You're welcome.
So that's a resolution. Okay. Next up is number 16, discussion of take-home vehicles for on-call police lieutenants. Right now, the system is all 3 lieutenants have the availability of a take-home car. I think that's a little too much. I believe that the on-call lieutenant for the night should be able to have a take-home car. Let's open that up for discussion if you wish to talk about that, Brian. No discussion?
Well, I'm sorry, is there a time limit?
3 minutes.
I'm looking for my notes, my friend. I had I do know that we have all voted for lieutenants to take cars home. I don't know why it's an issue now. I do know that when there is an emergency, in this day and time, I think it's a great idea for lieutenants to have a take-home car. What is the expense? A little extra gas and a toll. The car is paid for, the insurance is paid for, whether it's sitting here or in somebody's home. We have those fears of, and anxiety in society of not being able to respond should something really bad happen. I think it says a great deal about the town board to allow the command staff to take these cars home because they truly are responsive. They don't have to work 24/7, but they do. They respond to emails, they respond to their officers, they're responding to text, and they're available from their house to go to a scene as opposed to having to go from their house to the town to get a car to then go out to a scene. I think it's a little extra tip of the hat, thanking them for their service and for their dedication and for their great deal of time that they give in service of the town. I don't see that there's a problem here.
I'm sorry, but we can't be giving gifts to town employees. That's kind of against the law.
Oh, it's a gift.
Well, you said it's a thank you. That's a gratuity.
Oh, I think it's
I think it should only be something that's provided as part of the performance of the individual command staff's job functions. And
It
if
is.
the command staff is not on duty on a particular night, then why should they have a vehicle at their house?
Because they get called
What function
out
does it
and
serve?
they leave in the middle of the night from their house sometimes to go to a crime scene. So it saves time for them to have the car. And it's only a little gas and a toll.
Certainly if they're on call, I firmly support any command staff who is on call on a given evening, who is going home, is not in station, but is on call, they should have that vehicle, absolutely. What do we say the situation should be when an individual is not on call? Say, for instance, they've reached the maximum number of hours they're eligible to work in a given week. What is the function of them taking town property home with them?
Yeah, I got no problem with one guy taking the car home. All three of them, and including the chief, that's 4 vehicles the taxpayers are paying for.
If the person's on call, however many, if it's one, if it's two, if it's just, the individual one, whoever it is, should absolutely be taking it home because, as you said, Brian, it could be 2 in the morning and they may need to go out to a scene and I want them there as quickly as possible and I know that when they're there, they're going to do a great job. But if it's a Saturday and, Sergeant A has finished his, or excuse me, Lieutenant A has finished his tour for the week, has maxed out his number of hours he can report, what function does it serve the town for him to be taking that vehicle home?
On an emergency basis, I think it's a good thing to have a little layer of caution for the town, to have
On-call lieutenant, one
someone
guy.
On call.
being able to respond. It's pretty simple. It's a little gas and a toll. I think it's an okay thing.
I think we already have a policy in place that we adopted in 2022. Again, it's just a failure of the supervisor to sit down and talk to the chief about things like this. And I have even asked for a meeting of the police commission to meet with the chief, CC'd all the board members, and I don't remember anybody saying, yeah, great idea, let's do that.
I did.
Because obviously we have a lot of things to talk about. And I'd rather talk to the chief than just sit here and make assumptions that, we only need one for the lieutenant and on-call. We already have a policy in place. So I'm not sure exactly where you're going with this.
Okay.
I mean, I'd love to talk to the chief in any capacity. I don't really get to do that, so.
Why is that?
I don't know. You two guys had a meeting with him this week. I didn't get an invite.
No, we called, we asked for a
just pick
meeting.
up the phone.
Well, then thank you very much for including me.
You're a town board member. Pick up the phone and do it yourself. I'm not your secretary.
But
The disdain with which you refer to the position of secretary is offensive as a former one. Secretaries are the reason the world turns.
I just don't understand the idolization going on around here. All right, so I'll do a resolution for 16.
No offense, Joe. I'm sure that wasn't intended personally.
All right, next one up is going to be discussion of hiring an accreditation officer for the police department. I think we're about 70% done We've been doing this for about 5 years. I think it's time to knock this out and get this done. I'd like to hire somebody to do the accreditation and finish it up. What are you guys' opinion on that?
All in favor.
What's, what kind of number are we thinking about?
I don't know, 50 bucks
Salary
an hour?
wise.
50 bucks an hour, maybe?
Do we know for a fact what it would take? And we know, I mean, I've seen emails anyway on how far along, and I'm sure you have, he is, and working on this.
Oh, yeah.
So
A lot of
you
work's
wanna
been done, a
hire-
lot of work still to go.
Do you want to hire someone, I mean,
Yeah.
what department has that kind of person, and what does it cost? And
I think we can hire somebody, and, you know, if you're
And-
interested, you could be the liaison between the accreditation officer and the police department.
And,
And
I
you'll
mean,
have-
but do
you'll
you
have
have
the
a
direct-
budget number? Do you know what the police
We
department
got,
has done that?
we got overtime money in there to do stuff like this.
Isn't that, I'm just asking general questions. Is it
Yeah.
a specialty to know how to put that together, and where do you find that person? I'm just curious.
We
you
could- we
know,
could advertise
How
for
much
that
does it
position.
cost?
And we could
The
set a
chief
cap.
has in the past indicated an interest in designating a specific individual to be an accreditation
But
officer.
an officer within the department.
But, right, but to have someone who we could bring in with a background in the police accreditation process would certainly be an asset to the chief. Because this has been a longstanding objective of his. I remember him talking about this when the supervisor and the town board appointed him chief in 2020.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure, you know, as proud as he is of the progress, and there's been a lot of that, I'm sure he's also very eager to finish that process, and I think we owe it to the department to provide them with the assets they need to be able to complete that process as quickly as possible.
So
And-
can we schedule a meeting with the police commission
To do what?
I said I was in favor
to
of that.
talk about
What's
take-home vehicles or police lieutenants?
I wanna know-
Hiring an accreditation order that's not in the budget, and obviously the next resolution, discussion.
Yeah.
Why not? There seems to be a lot of things to discuss.
Yeah, we
It's
can
a- it's a
discuss
bi- it's
that.
a- it's a big budget item in our town.
I think the accreditation officer, we certainly can sit down and discuss with him with that.
Yeah.
I'm willing to listen to that. Because if he says he could do it within a year, then we might not need an accreditation officer,
Let's have that discussion.
okay? So we'll set up a meeting just specifically for accreditation. So number 16. That would be number 17. So we'll table 17 for a month, Cooper?
Okay.
Table that one. Next up, number 18, 9197, discussion of hiring a full-time police chief. If you guys don't know, we have a part-time police department. We're probably budgeted close to 50 officers. Since I've been here, we've added a sergeant, a detective, and allocated for 3 other officers, but during the manpower, we just haven't been able to hire them. We're at a crossroads. We're having difficulties hiring people part-time as police officers. In order to hire people as patrolmen, you have to be commanded by a full-time police chief. And being such a big police department, I think we need to have a full-time police chief so we can start hiring officers on patrol, the backbone of our society, the patrol officers. So that's where I want to go with that. We got 50 part-time guys. Usually when you get to around 20, 25 police officers, agencies start talking about going to becoming full-time. We're at 50, and if we don't stop this, we're going to have 60, 70 part-time guys within a decade. So I want to start hiring maybe 1 a year a full-time cop, and in 10 years we'll have 10, and the only way that can happen is if we have a full-time chief.
Oh, so you
So
want
what
to
are your thoughts?
John, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so this board can pass a resolution asking the powers to be up in Albany to grant Keith Dworkin a waiver so he can earn over the maximum amount allowable regarding salary. This board can also ask our labor attorney to draw up a contract between the town board, the town and the chief, and this board can adopt a resolution approving Keith Dworkin as our full-time police chief. I'm ready to vote on that in 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, waivers are, for what you don't understand is waivers are used for titles that can't be filled. So if I put an application for police chief, I probably get about 100 of them within a week. So in order to get a waiver, you have to prove to the state that that position cannot be filled.
And so we can't just immediately transition the chief from part-time chief to full-time chief. We have to do our due diligence and perform a traditional employee search.
Correct.
Okay.
In the meantime, we have a chief who does operate like a full-time one. He has a maximum number of hours, as we all know. I take the time to pick up the phone and give him a call. and go over there like I do highway and other departments, because it's good to know all the people as much as I can. I read 3 pages of accomplishments this man has put in place in his brief tenure here. It is quite a list. It's very impressive. And he has the faith and the backing of the force. He's a guy that's highly respected. And I want the people of the town of Fishkill to understand, we have a police force right now that is highly respected throughout Dutchess County. Okay? You have a lot of officers that want to come and work here. They do. And he has a he has instituted an extremely stringent screening process. Okay? So we don't just hire anybody. And that makes our force one of the best that's out there. We have a couple of police chiefs, one that is still a police chief with another department, part-time, and 2 ex-police chiefs, okay? So that tells you they came to work here under this chief because of the way he runs our force in our department. It's a high caliber of people. And in addition to that, we have a cadet program that he has helped to really encourage to flourish. So we have a next generation of officers. We have good things with our force, and we need to just work with them and encourage them. We have a person on staff right now that is a great chief. It would be hard to replace him, and I just don't understand the need to go from $35,000 a year, where they're capped, and maybe Albany will finally see to it that they'll get a $10,000 increase, so $45,000 a year, and this guy busts his tail all the time, and to go to a full-time police chief, calculations that I've heard is we go from that amount of money to 200 grand. Because why? It's going to be all kinds of extra to pay, and plus the salary. So then you're talking, right now you're talking about hiring full-time police officers.
Correct.
And each one of those are going to jump the budget dramatically. I think we have a force that we can work with right now and work to augment, and that's what I'm trying to develop and will be coming out with to make sure that we have an adequate force.
I never thought I'd live to see the day when a Republican was against spending on police.
You
got it, brother.
They're highly dedicated, and they're good people, and to listen to this.
We are getting too big to be a part-time police department. We need a full-time chief, and we got to start hiring full-time officers in the patrol position. I think we could work with part-time sergeants and lieutenants and detectives. I think that works. Most of those people that you talk about that were chiefs or whatever, they all hold rank here. We have, I believe, 25 gold badges and maybe 20 silver badges. That's how upside down this place is. We have allocated for 50 part-time cops. We got to figure out what are we going to be in 10, 15, 20 years. We're going to have 75 part-time guys?
Well, that's going to cost more than a full-time department.
Come on, guys.
For me, I'm just going to weigh in with, I don't even like an analogy, but it's what's been spinning in my head, because I, not being a police officer, don't pretend to be an expert on how police departments function, but from what I've been able to learn, I recognize that there's sort of a natural evolution to how services, technologies, concepts run their course. So one thing that I sort of like to compare our police department to in terms of how it's grown and how it has improved, and Brian, you mentioned 3 pages of accomplishments. I would like to say that the idea of transitioning to a full-time police chief is not a mark against the job that our chief has been doing. It in fact is a mark of how far the department has come, that we have now reached the next step in the process. Think about this, which is what I've been considering. In the 1980s, people wanted to share information more quickly, and the internet was in its infancy. By the 1990s, when I was a child, and most of the people here would have been starting to use computers with the internet, I'm sure you all remember that we connected to it using dial-up. It was a slow system. I'm sure we can all remember the dial-up tones as we connected to AOL. You've got mail, all that. But because the internet became more usable, more people required its services. They wanted to be able to do more. They needed it to be able to provide them with more. So what did we get in the 2000s? We got DSL. All of a sudden now, the internet is capable of handling a larger number of individual clients and capable of transmitting more information, providing more services. Now you can watch videos on YouTube. But this, of course, drives further interest and need for the internet for things like commerce and other functions. So what comes after that? Fiber optics and Wi-Fi. Every technology, every service that does its job well will inherently render itself obsolete in time. Think of our own police department. Before 1972, it was a constabulary.
That's right.
In 1972, it was established as a police department by our legendary Chief Williams. And it was part-time, did not provide 24-hour day service, didn't provide 7 days a week service, but it served the job that it needed to at the time. And over time, it has grown larger, to it began providing 24-hour service, and now we're at a point where not only does it provide 24/7 service, but it participates in the drug task force with the county, and it participates in providing school resource officers to our local schools. Our police department is now doing as much as any part-time police department is capable of, but I am not satisfied with the idea that the status quo with the people who we know and we like is enough, because we have an obligation not specifically to the individuals we like, but to the residents that we serve, and we are now at that tipping point where we have to ask the question, what's next? Because we are now paying well over half, if I'm remembering correctly, well over half what a full-time police department costs.
We're hitting almost 4 million.
And a full-time police department
About
might cost?
7.
About 7. Now, I'm assuming that full-time police departments also are eligible for additional grant fundings that part-time police departments aren't?
Correct, but that depends.
Obviously, that will be a different conversation. But we are reaching a point where the good work that our police department is doing is rendering itself in need of some sort of update. Just as we went from dial-up to DSL to fiber optics to Wi-Fi, we went from a constabulary to part-time to a 24/7 part-time. What's next? For me, that would begin with bringing on a full-time police chief. And I will say, if we cannot identify a qualified full-time candidate, John, I'll be right there with you, with Albany for Chief Dworkin. This is not and is not, will not be, a mark against our police chief. None whatsoever. And should we move to hire a full-time police chief, I will not wish to see Chief Dworkin leave. I will do whatever we need to keep him involved in our police department in whatever capacity is agreeable for all parties. It is a question of what comes next, because we have a higher duty than to him individually. We have a duty to 22,000+ people who live in the town of Fishkill, who rely on this board to act in their best interest, and not on ours or in the interest of any individual over at that department. And we're at that point where we need to do what's next.
I couldn't have said it better, Greg. I want to spend more money. I want to invest more in our police department. And our weakness is the patrol staff. And we either get staffed with a person that's retired from a job with 20 years, and some of them are retired police chiefs, which is great.
Fantastic.
And then there's no civil service test, so they're immediately promoted to sergeant, or they leave. They don't stick around long. And then you have the second group of officers, or young men and women, who go to a community college up in Ulster County or wherever they can and put themselves through the police academy. They come here. As soon as they can find a full-time job, they're gone. So the strength of a police department is its patrol staff, not the chief, not the sergeants, not the lieutenants, but the patrol staff. And we have a weakness of hiring people and retaining them. Unless they get promoted, they're going to leave. Yeah. So what we got to do is our backbone. We have to get some patrol, and I'm talking 1 a year for the next 10 years. And then the only reason we need a full-time chief, so a full-time chief can command full-time officers. That's what's the best interest of the town of Fishkill. Because if we keep going in this road, I'll be gone in 6, 7 years or whatever. 10, 15 years from now, we're going to have 70, 80 part-time cops here. It's not going to work. We have to do it now while we have the opportunity.
I think that, you guys give a great argument here.
Thank you.
But I'm not convinced, because I have yet, Greg,
yes,
to hear of you go and meet with the police and understand what we do have. And I think that you need to get a better understanding, respectfully, of who we have, what we have, and right now, And then we're talking about doing this that's going to cost a lot of money, and you're talking about a force that's a great force, when what we need to be doing is working with them to see what they need now. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. That's true. But what we need to do is study this a lot more before we need to go to the major expense. Every time I hear about let's go to a full-time this, a full-time that, it's just the first time that I hear it coming out here. I don't see any background on this, and you're asking for major changes and major expenses. And Greg, respectfully, I think you need a good comprehensive meeting to get an understanding what's going on over there. And that's just my recommendation and my thoughts.
We already know what the chief wants. He puts it on his weekly bulletin to us, his update. He wants more sergeants and more detectives. More sergeants, more detectives. More sergeants, more detectives. What?
There's more people now up in Fishkill.
And that's another reason why we need to start transitioning to a full-time agency. In 1972, the population of Fishkill might have been 5,000, 6,000 people.
It was 5,500.
5,500 people. And you're wrong, it's not 22,000, we're approaching 25,000 people.
I wasn't counting the people from the village.
Gotcha.
Who are our constituents as well.
So you're looking at 25,000 people in our borders. We have problems hiring patrolmen, the backbone of the police department. And another thing, we haven't hired one person from Fishkill in 5 years. Think about that and wonder why that's not happening.
Well, why is it not happening?
You tell me.
No, you tell me.
You mentioned it.
I mean, if applications are open, they're open. You tell me.
So what the solution is, more sergeants and more detectives, more sergeants and more detectives. That's what's going to happen. Like I said, there's 25 gold badges compared to less than 20 silver badges. And that's going to continue to be that way. We need to get one full-time cop a year, and in 10 years we'll have 10. I'm not saying we're going to hire 10 guys tomorrow. We'll do one a year, and we evaluate. And there was a study about 10 years ago to merge the village, the town, and the city of Beacon into one police department. They spent about 200 grand maybe on that, and guess what? It failed. No one had to pay that money back, just to let you know that. So
Well, that's a cute little comment, but
It is.
it's a whole different situation.
everything is different.
As-
just like
as nothing to do with right in
just
front
like
of your face,
just
this
like
one to pay
collecting
back.
just like
That was
collecting
cute, though. That
just
was-
like collecting combining water districts, and it doesn't mean that the other water district doesn't get that capacity.
Yeah, it's a good try. It's a good try.
We're gonna have 3 resolutions. I'll prepare a resolution for the next meeting on this one, for the hiring of the full-time chief.
No, I just
You
don't
can vote
think,
no
I don't
then.
think that we really
You can vote no.
have gotten there yet with this discussion before you bring it up for a vote. I don't think that we're there yet in making that kind of decision. I think I don't know why you're posturing this way. I think this is a major thing, and I think this needs more
Ladies and gentlemen,
discussion.
he says why I'm posturing this way. I've been supervisor for 4 years. Every single department in this town, the entire town, has seen magnificent improvements. Significant improvements, except one. I'll just leave it at that.
And
Next up is privilege of the floor
this is
for
the
agenda.
way this is the way you
That's an insult,
politicize.
Ozzy.
That's the way you politicize our. That's unbelievable. What you just said.
You know what he just
I
said?
read
You know what he just said? You know what he just
I
said?
read
Politicize the
3
police department.
Pages. 3
He said
pages. 3
politicize the
pages.
police department. You know what I said earlier?
3 pages.
How there
Of
was no
improvements.
availability for the hometown banners, how there was no availability for the 9/11 ceremony for the 20th anniversary. You know what they had availability for? Their swearing-in ceremony. Plenty of cops showed up for that, being paid. So anyway,
Swearing in, we had cadets.
you had the
had
whole king caboodle that over here.
We had cadets.
No, you did not have cadets.
Came.
You did not have cadets. You had guys in the full honor
Cadets
guard.
came.
You
I
also
don't-
had officers in uniform in your campaign material, which is a
Yes.
violation of election law too, Brian. So I'd really advise
I
not
don't know
to tread
about that.
too heavily.
Pretty much followed campaign law. So
Sure you did.
Yeah, I did.
All right, next up, privilege of the floor for agenda items.
Oh, my
Only
God.
what we spoke on the agenda today, or what we discussed here.
Hi, thank you. Not to open that wound again, but I have to admit that, well, I have one question first before I start. So for part-time employees, do those employees go into the system? Like, so in other words, do they start gaining a pension, or do they start getting?
It depends. So it depends who we hire. If we hire a retired police officer, we save a lot of money.
Mhm.
But what's happening is now we're hiring people that graduate themselves from
Right.
this academy, and
Yeah.
you still have to pay for them.
Correct.
So you got some people that work half the time here at Fishkill and half the time in another municipality,
Mhm.
so they work a full year with 2 jobs.
Right.
And you could get your 20-year retirement by working, 2 jobs. And,
Well,
but-
hasn't that become the American way? You can't make a living at one job, so you have to start spreading yourself out and working 2 jobs, right?
And I can't tell
It's
you how many,
also
I can't tell you
why
how many,
when-
So-
I'm sorry.
I can't tell you how many Fishkill residents have come here that are police officers and other agencies
Yeah.
that would love to come here.
I
We
do-
need some residents to work here in the town of Fishkill, too.
I do have one comment. Although I did not look at this year's budget line for line, I did actually review the year prior's line for line. And I have to say, there were 2 departments that have what I would consider, as a business owner, an excessive amount of overtime. $110,000 for the police department.
Correct.
For overtime. And I'm going to say, I actually was speaking with an officer fairly recently, and I said, excuse my French, why the hell aren't you guys full-time? And he said, that's something that the town officials would need to decide. It is my firm belief that employees should be compensated and should have a livable wage, a livable career, if they so choose it. In my opinion, having a part-time police department doesn't seem to make sense. I think that people should not be having to work 2 jobs here, there, and everywhere. And I come to these meetings, so I see the hiring. There are a lot of young people that are not from this area, that are coming from Newburgh, that are coming from, I think one was even maybe Hyde Park. I don't know, I might not be remembering that correctly. But to me, $110,000 of overtime, I mean, would that not cover at least 1 full-time employee?
And the goal would be to, like I said earlier, 1 a year.
Mhm.
I think we can save, the costs in Beacon and East Fishkill are about $7
Right.
million.
Mm-hmm. I guess
think
what I'm...
when you were a sergeant, you're a little older, you're a little more mature, you have that training.
Mhm.
And a guy that does 20 years in a police department doesn't want to get back in the uniform and be a patrolman.
I understand that.
And they're assets that are worth quite a bit more than 100,000 because they got experience. They know what they're doing. But we need patrolmen here,
Right.
patrolmen that live in Fishkill, that know the citizens, that grew up with the kids.
I agree
grew up
with
with the
you.
inferior characters, and who have a vested interest in seeing Fishkill succeed.
Yeah.
I
And to your
guess
point,
what I'm
Ann,
getting at is it would reduce then overtime, would it not, if we had a full-time people?
No,
Or maybe I'm not understanding that.
That wouldn't
There's no
happen
guarantee of
because overtime is going to be overtime. It is what it is. This banner detail might be another 6 hours overtime. That's how that works.
Yeah.
And
But
you could
To
have-
your point, Ann, you were talking about very difficult way to try and support yourself in this economy on one job. And my mind with that, as a young person, immediately springs to the young people from our police cadet program. I know Brian, heavily involved, big supporter of that. I am too. Fantastic. You've been doing fantastic work supporting them. I applaud you. None of those kids, when they grow up and pursue a career in law enforcement, are going to be able to work for the town of Fishkill. Because they're going to need a full-time job, full-time wages, the benefits that come along with that. They're going to need to be able to support themselves. Everyone has the dream of home ownership. They're not going to be able to do that working as a part-time officer. And sure, maybe when they graduate the academy, they might come and work for the town of Fishkill. But as we've seen with at least half a dozen other young police officers fresh out of the academy or with little experience professionally who have come to work for Fishkill, as soon as they get that full-time offer, they're gone.
Well, Greg, that's
I can-
what we are. We're a part-time, as Ozzy said, we have people who are retired, put their time in. We
Are
have the
we
young
still at
people
privilege of
who
the
are waiting
floor?
for the phone call
And-
for that full-time position. It's a mix. That's who we are.
Right, but
And-
we
and
talk
this-
about
and
the issues of
that's what we
maintaining
got-
adequate
it-
staffing,
that's
we
what we
talk
gotta
about the
change.
issues of having enough
that's what we gotta
patrolmen on the
change.
street, we
These-
talk about those issues.
These are kids, we don't know if they're going to apply to be a cop. This is a great program for them to be in, so it's understandable. But, we have people officers that live in the town of Fishkill that work in Westchester. I wonder how it would be if Westchester required them to live there in order to work and be an officer. I don't
No
know
one's
how-
saying that.
I don't know how you can
No one's saying
require
that.
applicant, and I'm all for.
Can I just make one more comment
all for-
before I
this
go
is
and sit
privilege of
back
the floor,
down?
Ann, by all means.
Yeah, thank you. and I didn't mean to open the wound.
There's no wounds.
But,
We're discussing.
but I got to tell you, things are getting a little bit contentious. And, I think from at least my perspective out in the audience, it doesn't seem like a productive conversation. And again, just from my own, I'm a business owner, I'm looking at it, if you're considering a full-time chief position, the implication that I'm hearing from the right side of the room, as opposed to the left side of the room, is that it immediately disqualifies the current chief. Is that what you're assuming? Again, so just from what I'm hearing, it just seems to be like, I don't know, I would look at it as like, hey, he could be a full-time chief. So I'm a
Doesn't
little bit
qualify.
confused why this has become into this
all for that.
explosive conversation, and, my God, I gotta get home.
A part-time chief can't command full-time officers.
I agree, so.
No,
We're not
it's
there yet.
requirement. In order for a department to have full-time officers working for it, they must report to a full-time
Right.
chief.
So my point being that the assumption or the implication seems to be from two members of the board that this might disqualify the chief. Like, does he not want to be a full-time person? I mean,
sure
is
he
that the concern, or?
Well,
Huh?
what I'm
there
gathering
making
is
that
that
decision.
the notion.
I can't, you said something in
We're
response
not
to.
there. So, to go back 1 second to the overtime thing.
Well,
you
wait a
have-
minute. No,
you
no,
ha-
no.
You have in there also.
Wait, excuse
people
me.
That are sick.
You had answered my question. You
people-
mumbled something and I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I'm gonna answer that.
So does he not want to be a
But-
full-time
but-
chief?
I'm going to answer the other thing first, just real quickly, is that you do have people that are sick or on vacation, et cetera,
Yeah,
and so
I get
therefore,
it.
overtime accumulates.
I'm a business person. I get it. I
And
understand how that works.
But I would imagine that our chief would love to be hired as full-time, because that's what he is right now at $35,000 a year, is
A
full-time.
topic we can cover if the police commission would sit down and have a meeting with them. Perfect topic.
Well, then certainly I feel like this is something that can kind of be cleared away, but to the point of some special kind of consideration or something like
It's
that.
called a waiver.
A
So
waiver.
if you give a waiver,
Like,
you can't, like, say
that you
gotta-
need to kind of put
say
an
we-
application out
Say we
or
needed somebody
or
that
call
has a
out.
special degree in nuclear engineering, and there were no applicants, and you're
Yeah,
retired.
no, I understand
and
how
we
it
put you in
works.
there.
So let's
But-
get some
but-
applications. I mean, if
unlike-
he's interested or not interested.
I don't know that, I don't know enough, that's another point. I don't know enough about the waiver process to say that he would be disqualified.
I didn't say that.
I think
No,
you were.
nobody said
No, I
that.
didn't. I didn't say that.
Nobody said that.
I think you were saying that,
No, I did not.
all these other people that, don't need a waiver, they'd be applying, and it probably would exclude them, so.
Anything else?
I didn't pick up that at all.
Anything
That's
else?
not at all what I heard the supervisor say.
Anything
But
else? Anything
no,
else?
that's it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Next up is resolution for the consent agenda. We remove number 3. I'll present that as a motion. Can I have a
As
second? As amended, can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So there's 2 resolutions. Number 1, 9209, a resolution making certain determination in regard to approving consolidation of the Glenham Water District of the Town of Fishkill, Dutchess County, New York, pursuant to Article 12 of the town law. The gentleman, that's all is yours to present as a motion and read it.
I don't have it in front of me.
It's yours. You wanted it on the agenda. Hold on a second. I'll get it for you.
Here it is.
You got it. Give me
Does he need to read all of the whereases, or
He could just wear the
sections?
no, he doesn't have to wear the whereas, it's just the bottom.
Ah, here it is. Determination. So where it says determination from there to the end, John.
And then have the second one ready.
Yeah, I'm pulling that together now.
There you go, John. But you gotta make a motion, present as a motion, then ask for a second.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion for item number 9209, a resolution making certain determinations in regard to and approving the consolidation of the Glenham Water District of the Town of Fishkill, Dutchess County, New York, pursuant to Article 12A of the town law. Is there a second?
Second.
I believe it needs to be read first.
I'm sorry?
I believe it needs to be read first.
Read it.
Okay. Now therefore be it resolved by the Town Board of the Town of Fishkill, Dutchess County, New York as follows. Town Law, Section 209D requires that notice of the hearing on the proposed consolidation of the Glenham Water District be published at least once in the town's official newspaper, not less than 10 nor more than 20 days before the day of the public hearing, and that a copy of the notice likewise be posted on the town clerk's bulletin board, not less than 10, no more than 20 days before the date of the public hearing. Here, the notice of public hearing was duly and timely published in town's papers of record, Poughkeepsie Journal and the Southern Dutchess News, and was duly and timely posted on the town's website and the town clerk's bulletin board. Section 2, whether all the property and property owners within the consolidated water district are benefited. In consolidating the outside users listed in the map, plan and report into the Glenham Water District, the town is merely grouping properties which already receive municipal central water service from the same source and physical plant as the Glenham Water District into a single district for purposes of improving administration and reducing administrative costs. Thus, all the property and all the property owners within said proposed consolidated Glenham Water District will be benefited by the proposed consolidation. Section 3, whether all the property and property owners benefited are included within the limits of the consolidated water district. In consolidating the outside users listed in the map, plan and report into the Glenham Water District, the town is merely grouping properties which already receive municipal central water service from the same source and physical plant as the Glenham Water District into a single district for purposes of improving administration and reducing administrative costs.
There it is.
Okay, Section 1, upon the record before the town board is hereby found and determined as follows. A, the notice of hearing was duly published and posted as required by law and is otherwise sufficient. B, all the property and property owners within said proposed consolidated Glenham Water District are benefited thereby. C, all the property and property owners benefited by the proposed consolidated Glenham Water District are included within the limits of the district. D, it is in the public interest to approve the proposed consolidation of the Glenham Water District. Section 2, the consolidated Glenham Water District as more fully described in the map, plan and report prepared by CPL Architecture, Engineering, and Planning, competent engineers duly licensed by the state of New York, is hereby approved. Section 3, the consolidated Glenham Water District shall be bounded and described as set forth in Schedule A, attached hereto and made a part hereof. And 4, this resolution shall take effect immediately.
Second.
Present that as a motion.
I present that as a motion, seconded by
Second.
Brian. Can we have a roll call vote?
Yep.
Or any more discussion on this before we vote?
No.
Okay.
All right. Councilmember Totino?
No.
Councilmember Foreman?
Yes.
Councilmember Rye?
Yes.
Supervisor Albro?
No.
Okay.
Next one is number 2, this one.
Fails. Okay.
We'll just read that section.
I just have a question. When was the public notification for the Glenham consolidation posted? What was the date for the public hearing for the Glenham people to come? Because I'm a Glenham resident.
Okay.
And I pay taxes to Fishkill.
Right.
And I want to know about this, and I'm sure other people from Glenham want to know also. And we don't have like a Poughkeepsie Journal per se like we used to. You have to go online for everything. So
Our town clerk will tell you. Becky?
No. What was the date?
I don't have the date in front of me. If you call me tomorrow, I can pull out that folder with the law in it. But it's typically, it's not less than 10 days, not more than 20. So it depends on the day of the week. It's by law must be published in the 2 official newspapers, which were done on that date, and on the town's signboard, and on the town's website. So it's out there. Those are where we have to.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, no, I don't have the date in front of me,
Well,
but
that's
it's.
what I'm asking. If you don't have the date, then I don't have the date. That's
Well, you can call her tomorrow, and she'll pull it up.
That's what I said.
I'm just asking,
Mhm.
because you're approving everything, and I don't know how many people in Glenham are actually aware. So I'm glad I'm here tonight to hear a lot of the discussions that you all are having. And I will be coming, and I certainly hope that others, people will be coming, not only from Glenham, but for Fishkill.
Thank you.
And like I said, I've been here a resident all my life, and my parents, and we have been paying in to Fishkill the same amount that Fishkill pays. And when I heard that someone said, I'm interested in the Fishkill residents, but not the Glenham, that was a little terse. So I think that when people come to these meetings, or even if they hear it on television, there should be a little more professionalism in it, because we are adults, and we're sitting here and we're listening to the leaders in our community. And if we disown others because of what we think maybe Fishkill should have and not Glenham should have, it's a little disconcerting. So perhaps going forward, I've met with people here that's on the board. They've been so professional. They've been so tactful. And I appreciate it. And the other day, regarding the police department, unfortunately...
Ma'am, could you come, if you're going to talk, come up here so everybody in the audience gets the benefit, even though we're out of that agenda item, but we certainly would give you that courtesy. And I'm not certain I know your name.
Sure, I'm going to give you my name. I have my business cards. I have everything. My name is Ruth Anderson, and I live in Glenham, New York. And I love Glenham. I love the Hudson Valley. I love Fishkill. I know a lot of the people here in Fishkill because I've been a part of it for a long time. So I was just saying that when we're sitting here listening to the board, there should be a certain decorum. And I worked at Texaco Research Center for years, and I've worked in here in the community, the school system, the whole gamut. And when we're making a presentation, not only are you making a presentation among yourselves, but you're making a presentation to us. And then once in a while, I'll turn on the television and I can hear that presentation. So if we're talking over one another, we're not really getting the benefit of it. And if I'm paying taxes, Glenham to Fishkill, I want to be, not just me, but the people of Glenham, we want to feel that we are definitely a part because we're contributing. So that's one of the things I wanted to say. And just going forward, I have something that all of us could be a part of. And what I do, I was raised to do, to respect one another, because we see people as people. I have a nonprofit organization, and it's called Taking It to the Street, FHWD. And what does FHWD? It means feeding and clothing the hungry with dignity. Everybody that I meet, everybody that works on our team, everybody is respected with dignity. And that's what we should be doing as a board on a continuum. Because I came tonight, I wanted to hear what they had to say about Black History Month, but I also know as a resident that I should be here for every meeting that you have on a Wednesday night, but we also have church. So I went down to the Church of the Nazarene, and then I came here. And I want to thank you all for what you're doing, but I also want you to be considerate of all the people that you represent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ms. Anderson? Ms. Anderson, those dates for the public hearings are in these, you'll have everything there?
business card, because
Thank you so much.
The dates of
you need it,
the,
the home is
the dates of the public hearings and all that stuff are in there.
Thank you so
Okay.
much, appreciate it.
Thank you very much for coming.
Want me to read part two?
Yeah, make it just the bottom part.
Okay. Okay, the second resolution is ID number 9210. Final order of the Town Board of the Town of Fishkill approving consolidation of the Glenham Water District of the Town of Fishkill, Dutchess County, New York. Now therefore be it ordered by the Town Board of the Town of Fishkill, Dutchess County, New York as follows. Section 1, the Glenham Water District is hereby consolidated and expanded to encompass and include all those properties listed in the map, plan, and report. Section 2, the consolidated Glenham Water District shall be bounded and described as set forth in Appendix A, attached hereto and made a part hereof. Section 3, the town clerk of the Town of Fishkill is hereby authorized and directed to cause a certified copy of this order to be duly recorded in the office of the clerk of the County of Dutchess within 10 days after the adoption of this order. Section 4, the town clerk is hereby authorized and directed to file a certified copy of this order in the office of the State Department of Audit and Control, Albany, New York, within 10 days after the adoption of this order. Section 5, this order shall take effect immediately. Is there a motion? I make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Cooper, could you do a roll call?
Yes. Councilmember Totino.
Nay.
Councilmember Foreman.
Yay.
Councilmember Rye.
Yes.
Supervisor Albrecht.
No.
Okay.
All right, so next up is item of special consideration. We just have something with a cell tower on Route 9. We have to get a consultant, and they have a time limit on these type of things. So I'll read the entire thing on this one. So it's Town Board of Town of Fishkill from the Town Attorney, Planning Board, RF Consultant regarding the cell tower on Route 9. Whereas the Town of Fishkill Planning Board has recommended that the Town of Fishkill enter into a contract with Mr. Douglas Fishman to serve as the Planning Board's RF Engineer Consultant for the Homeland Towers Communication Tower Site Development Plan and Special Use Permit Number Peter Boy 24-00, and whereas the Planning Board received proposals from 3 RF consultants and discussed their qualifications, experience, and proposed costs at the February 8th, 2024 Planning Board meeting, Mr. Fishman has extensive experience working with municipalities in New York on project reviews of the proposed cell towers, and he has the lowest estimated cost proposal of the 3 consultants. The Planning Board unanimously determined in a motion at the February 8th, 2024 meeting that Mr. Fishman is the preferred RF consultant and recommended the Town Board consider authorizing Mr. Fishman in the next available Town Board meeting to assist the Planning Board with the RF aspects of Homeland Towers application, and whereas the services provided by Mr. Fishman in connection with his review of Homeland Towers communications, site development plan and special use permit shall be paid by means of the applicant, Town of Fishkill Planning Board escrow account, and now therefore be resolved, the Town Board of the Town of Fishkill hereby authorize the engagement of Mr. Douglas Fishman to be the town's RF consultant for the review of the Homeland Towers Communication Tower dash Site Development Plan and Special Use Permit Number Peter Boy 24-00, and be it further resolved that the town supervisor or his authorized designee be and are hereby authorized, directed to take all actions necessary and convenient to give full effect of this resolution, and be it further resolved that this resolution take effect immediately. I present that as a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
New and old business. Brian?
Not at this time.
John?
I have a couple things.
Go on.
Does the supervisor have easement documents that are waiting to be signed for Continental Commons?
I have nothing in front of me.
Okay.
If you get them, bring it to me and I'll sign them. I have
Okay.
nothing in front of me.
And the other thing I wanted to talk about was there was a press release from the county. They are going to be dipping their toes into helping out with EMS countywide. Now, I will tell you, I did speak to Town Board Bill Beal from Wappinger, who is I think maybe the Deputy Commissioner of the Emergency Response for the county. My question is, how deep into the water are you guys dipping your toes? And he did not say that they were going to be primary EMS for any municipality or any region, that they want to fill in the gaps. It's really, they're starting from scratch. So I was hoping that would kind of help where we are in Fishkill. It probably will help at some point in time, but it's not what I was hoping for.
Yeah, John is 100% correct. And believe it or not, we agree 99% of the time on stuff. And this ambulance thing is going to be a problem for us in the future. And thankfully, the county is moving on it. I believe, they were talking 4 or 6 flag cars throughout the county, but nothing really designated in any certain area. Any new or old business?
Yeah, I just wanted to float something as we're approaching America 250. I think with Fishkill being as historically significant as it is, that it might be something for us to consider to engage in a tourism passport program. I know that whether it be local areas, statewide regions, et cetera, have engaged in passports. I know, for instance, there's a national parks passport, and it's a little thing that you can get, and when you go to a particular place, you get it stamped. Yes, and it's a great way of tracking your attendance at different places throughout the nation. Fishkill has a number of fantastic historical places, and I think that we could look at putting together a little type passport thing, having it printed up. You could come and pick it up at Town Hall, or we could even distribute it to our local historical sites in advance of America 250 and sort of work on a passport program where people can be encouraged to visit all of Fishkill's historic sites. And perhaps we could even provide an incentive that if you show us a completed passport, you can march in the 250th parade.
No, what we could do is, I think we could mail something. If you guys agree, we should have a lot of our capital projects and stuff done, so we'll have a little money for the 250th, maybe a fireworks display, some type of parades. We can mail this to the residents of Fishkill. If they stamp the whole thing, maybe we can give them a gift at the end of it, a challenge coin, a pin, I don't know.
I mean,
That's a good idea.
Think
I
about
think
it.
it's a fun idea.
A fun idea.
It's all about community engagement for America 250.
So as we redesign the webpage, we
You already
have the
did it?
historical page.
Yes, come on, Kevin.
Our Highway Secretary, Kevin McCarthy.
You might want to touch base with Arnold Restivo and Jay Maeda, because they're in the process of organizing, it's called Hunt for History. It's going to be a scavenger hunt along the lines of what you guys are talking about.
Joe?
Bring all the ideas together.
If you reach out to Arnold, he'll gladly, if you want Joe to attend the meetings, but he's in the process for the 250th. It's going to be a whole thing, so you just might want to touch base.
And you know this because he's been meeting with you guys, organizing.
So Jay and Arnold and Lauren, before she's out, right? That's right.
She's
right. So they were meeting, and they had someone from Highway come because certain locations like the Ninham statue might require. So I've just been sitting in on meetings, but it's right along the lines of what Greg was talking about. It's going to be a hunt throughout all the...
Copy me on those emails, Joe.
And it's going to be an active one in that they want to set a date, but they're also going to do it passively where passports or scavenger maps would be available at the rec center or town hall. So just...
Well, yeah, I mean, the idea is fun. There's no doubt about it. And doing things like is great.
History fun.
Yeah, so
make sure Arnold's involved.
Yeah, just wanted to
that's outstanding.
And I think we can all agree that the Methodist Episcopal Church on Baxtertown Road should be one of those sites.
That's good.
There's a lot of things to include.
What is it, Ms. Anderson?
I would just like to be copied on that as well, because...
Do you get our town emails?
I do, but I just want to say that I'm a certified tourism ambassador for Dutchess County.
Wonderful.
So I thought perhaps I could be a part of something that you all are doing.
We would appreciate that. We're 2024, we're going to have to really start budgeting it for the 25 budget. So these things cost some money. No, I mean budgeting for trails,
expenses the town will incur.
So once we get that done, we'll know what we're going to do. And you'll see at the town board whether we vote to approve the passport or a challenge coin or a pin, whoever completes it. And we'll take it from there. But we plan on making it a big deal, the 250th anniversary of reading the Declaration of Independence. And this is not only Underground Railroad history, there's Revolutionary War history. I was with the Veterans Chairman yesterday, and we talked about doing a plaque for Sidney Schofield, the only soldier from Fishkill killed in the Spanish-American War. So I am 1,000% for history. was instrumental in getting that Chief Nimham statue being built, and I'm sure all these board members here support veterans' history all the way. And if we can make Fishkill, if we can make history fun, we can get more of these kids involved to understand that, there is a terminology, freedom isn't free. There's a lot of people that, and even African Americans, a lot of people die to, coming up here. And you saw the shackles on the TV today. Those are horrible images. So it's, yeah, we're gonna have to get the schools involved.
I'll give you my card and email, because there's a big project you might want to volunteer for as well, for
Yes.
the sword.
That's
All
a
right.
positive note to end on.
This was good. We agree like 95% of the time, people. Trust me.
But when we disagree,
we do.
dinner theater.
It's a legislative process. Sometimes it's nasty. I don't. Not nasty, but people fight for their positions.
So next meeting will be March 6th. God bless America, Fishkill. I make a motion to adjourn. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Bye-bye.